All right, I see a few of my friends in here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to invite Martin. There. All right, Martin, how are you?
Hello. Good
How are you doing?
afternoon.
Good evening to you.
Good evening to me. Yeah, it is.
So, what
It
time
is.
are we at over there?
It's 6 o'clock in Eindhoven. The sun is shining still, and I am at Enicar headquarters in my office, as you can see below.
Enicar HQ. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so fun. And now, how's
All
our
right.
sound? Is everybody hear us good? Give a Saturn emoji if you can hear us
So,
well.
well, oh, I'll keep my glasses on. Yeah.
Great, great. So, first of all, thank you for taking time to speak with me about your book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. For those that might not know about the book or Enicar and whatnot, do you mind kind of giving us a little bit of an introduction as to what started your passion on the brand?
Well, we have an hour, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, um, um, I think it was one of those situations where a lot of things came together at the same time. I was working in advertising, not feeling too happy in that kind of superficial world. I was getting a bit lost with my connection to writing, and I was searching for a way to create something again. So in 2018, I quitted my agency and started as a freelance copywriter. I was already involved in Enicar, in collecting, also in writing about Enicar for my website. And I think that was the time I just decided my first completely independent personal project is going to be this book. And that's what I did. And yeah, it's been going really fast. The book is already for a second print available, and yeah, but yeah, well, I think if you look back at how long I've been involved with Enicar, it's actually a pretty small time. It's only been since 2013, so it's less than a decade. And some of the watch collectors out there, they're involved in brands for like 10s and 20s or 30 years in a row, and I'm actually a newbie, so it's a bit surrealistic to now have a book about the brand. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride.
I find that so interesting. 7 years invested into passionate, following of a brand, researching it. It doesn't cease to become boring and whatnot. I've only been aware of Enicar since the last few months of 2019. So, in many ways, like the book elevated the brand and introduced me to the brand. So, I was curious, have you seen that there's been kind of a bit of, an awareness that's building over the past 8 months?
Yeah, of course. I've seen it in the book sales. I sold the first batch in a pretty short amount of time, which yeah, sort of indicates that there is a lot of interest in the brand. But I also see it online. I see it also in prices, of course. I think it's fair to say that the prices of a lot of Enicar models, especially the sharper ones, have pretty much elevated in the last months. I think that's a pretty clear indicator. Also, I get a lot of questions on a daily basis on my Instagram account about people who are new into the brand, who are asking all these questions to prevent themselves from buying a Franken watch or a fake. So I see a lot of new people coming around the corner to dig into this brand, and it's well, I think that's what the brand deserves. So it's a good thing. I think price wise, I'm not so happy because it's getting awfully difficult to buy a nice new Enicar watch without having to sell your children to some sort of yeah, well, let's not get into politics, but you get my drift, I think.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, as far as the collector community always wanting to be having accessible prices on a watch, it is cool to kind of see a brand. From my perspective, I've only been following, I'm a newbie, so to see it kind of, I guess, get the recognition or praise that it deserves in some sense. But again, we always want to get like the best price for a watch.
Sure.
Just out of,
Yeah.
you know, a topic that you had talked about, you know, you kind of get a lot of questions about Franken watches and variations on the watches. One of the things that I noticed a lot with the Sherpa watches, there's all of these very minute alterations with dials, with colors, bezels, as well as hands. Does this provide kind of more of a opportunity for collectors, or does it also kind of give a lot of people some skepticism around watches?
Well, I think it's important to explain how these Enicar watches were built and marketed, because basically, if you look at, for instance, the Sherpa model line, there are only a small number of basic watches, and they can all be altered, and because it's a modular system. A few weeks back, I talked to a guy from the Netherlands who worked as a Enicar sales representative. And he literally told me that he went to his clients, the watch dealers, with a suitcase. And the suitcase only contained like a small number of watches and a large number of dials and hands sets. So basically, an Enicar watch seller could choose between numerous variations, and they're all legit in my eyes, because that's the way Enicar presented their product to their watch resellers to get onto the market. And that if you look at what's inside the catalogs and inside the adverts, that's, I think, the watches that everybody is aiming for, you know, the watch that is also in the catalog, in the brochure. But another variation of the same watch with a different type of dial, different handset, is still 100% legit Enicar watch. And I think I know that's what makes it confusing, because you can have like a Sherpa date with a green dial. You can have one with a blue dial, one with a lollipop second hand, one with an orange pointer, and they're all built by Enicar, and they're all containing Enicar original parts. But yeah, well, if you yeah, I think it's safe to say that there are like hundreds of variations possible, and I do think that it's for a new collector, but also for people who are into Enicar for a longer period, it's really difficult to see if it's an authentic watch. But there are some giveaways. There are some giveaways to easily spot a fake from a real Enicar. Usually you can see it already in the dial. When the logo, for instance, is really obviously repainted, well, then you can be sure it's not original, of course. And also like the signings on the dial. There are certain rules for a Sherpa watch. There are rules for a Star Jewels watch. And if you see like ultrasonic deluxe or that kind of crap, or Cosmo painted on a dial, then you can be sure it's not original. So yeah, to be honest, I'm still puzzled sometimes too. I mean, I get on my Instagram, I get all these photos from people showing me the watches, and they're expecting me to tell them, well, it's a good one, or it's a fraudulent watch. And man, it's even difficult for me. I mean, one of the first things that I always ask is, can you open up the watch? Because Enicar movements are always signed with an AR movement. And AR stands for Aris Racine, the founder of Enicar. And so if there's a watch movement inside an Enicar watch that has like a completely different kind of movement, or it's not signed on the bridge, well, then you can be sure it's not an Enicar. Or at least it's been hassled with. It also goes for some of the handsets. I just told you that dealers were able to pick different kind of handset to customize their own Enicar. Well, there are also handset that are like obvious not Enicar made. So it's these kind of pointers. I've put some of the most asked questions I put on my website. I made a top 5 of the things to look for in an Enicar watch to decide if it's a go or a no go. So that can be helpful, I think. And for the rest, well, I guess that goes for watch collecting in general. It's also, you have to be lucky, I think, and you can all, even the best of us, get fooled around, have a bad buy. It happens. I mean, yeah. Well, that's also.
I like your perspective on it, talking about, you know, you still have to, you know, do your due diligence after so many years of, you know, being obsessed with the brand and learning about it and researching, you know, and to kind of take off of that, did writing the book, I guess the first extensive documentation of this book, provide any like extra pressure, being that you still consider yourself a newbie to the Enicar community after 7 years?
Well, I have to admit that I was quite nervous when I did the chapters about the movements, because I'm not a technical guy, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a watchmaker, so my knowledge of watch technique is sort of limited. So I talked to a number of watchmakers that I highly respect. And we looked at some of the movements, and I was explained why some of the choices that Enicar made were really good choices and some were like bold choices. And so I learned a lot from that. But yeah, that was something that was I was pretty nervous about, because you don't want to come across as someone who's writing a topic, a book topic, with little to no knowledge of one of the aspects that's actually pretty important. So, but apart from that, touching like the brand history in the book and doing the interviews with the former employees, I kind of felt at ease doing that, because that's where I come from. In my years in advertising, I worked as a concept creator and a copywriter. So I already have done a lot of interviewing and writing copy for the last 2 decades. What made it difficult, of course, was that most of the interviews were done in German. My English is hopefully passable, but my German is kind of tricky. Pretty rusty. I mean, I was in high school, I think, when I had I got taught the German language, and so that was pretty challenging, I think, is the word. Yeah, the rest of the research, I think I have been building that up since 2013, since I first got introduced to the brand. And I think everything I could find online and also in watch books, I collected. I saved it for later, because you never know, right? I think maybe even back then, Uh, I might have had the idea of doing a book one day, so I just saved everything I could find. So by 2018, I think I had a quite a nice archive already. And yeah, everything that was missing, I've been collecting in Switzerland in person. So
Well, Greg says a moment ago, he said that you're about ready to be indicted into the old community of, seasoned Enicar enthusiasts. So you've got that going for you. And, that was something that I
thanks,
really
Greg.
liked about, you've touched on the fact that to get this research, you have to, interview people that are in, a different city, country, different language barriers are presenting obstacles from the Westerners' perspective, where the majority of us only speak English. I always am just so thrilled that people always take that time to get translated versions or even printed in English in general, because it's such a blessing for us to be able to read it in our native language. So that's completely appreciated on my end. I feel like it's worth acknowledging. And
Yeah, well, I already knew that writing a book in Dutch would limit the target audience for the book like this. I mean, of course, in Holland we have a nice watch community. I think Enicar is still pretty unknown in that community, but we have some great forums. But I think if I would have written it in Dutch, I think I might have sold like 100 books, and that was it. Doing it in German was also a bit too limited thing, I think. And doing it in English was pretty doable, because I could create the concept copy, and I brought an editor on board to do the fine tuning and help me to look with a really critical eye to what I've written, and getting it to a higher level. So yeah, that's well, yeah. I think that was the only option, doing it in English.
Yeah, but it's fascinating though, because a lot of the things that go into publishing a book or creating a book in general just get overseen, right? We just think, oh, it's just you write the book, you copy everything from what's on the website, but there's so many more, obstacles
Yeah.
in line, and it takes a ton of effort. So, to see a brand get recognized in print format, it's also a brand that I've discovered deserved one. It's great. And
Absolutely.
and speaking on the aspect of interviewing former employees or the Racine family, can you walk us through kind of what the most memorable interactions that you had with any of the people who participated in it?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I went to Switzerland in September 2018, and I had literally one connection there. One. And that was from someone I only talked to through Instagram and through WhatsApp. Jerome, really, really nice guy, true watch lover, and also just a great guy in general. And I don't know how he connected to me, but he at one point knew that I was going to Switzerland, and he had two people in his network that used to work for Enicar, two former watchmakers. One who worked there for like 6 years and had his education with Enicar, and one gentleman who has worked there his whole life. And so I went to Switzerland knowing that I probably was going to be able to talk to those two former employees. And my goal was just, well, let's go there. And Langnau seems like a small village. Langnau is the city where the Enicar factory is located. It seems like a small village with only like 4,000 people. Yeah, well, I think I might be able to talk to people there just go to the city hall, maybe somebody knows someone, and just see what happens, you know. So but I started in Biel, which is a very important watch city in Switzerland, together with Le Locle, of course, and Le Chaux de Fonds. And Biel is pretty similar to Eindhoven. It's a pretty multinational city with a lot of immigrants. There's this creative vibe, and people are really, really, really approachable there. That's not something that goes for Switzerland in general. I've been told these people and some of the cities are really closed and really, really difficult to penetrate. So once in Biel, the first days I just started walking around, talking to people, visiting watch shops, visiting watchmakers. Then I went to Lengnau just to find people who could help me get in contact with other people who had more knowledge about the brand, who worked there. And then I had these plans, these scheduled interviews to Jerome with the two watchmakers. And yeah, I think it went pretty easy from that point on. Once you talk to someone who has actually worked in the factory, actually been working in the plant, he can help you with new information. He can help you with a name. He can help you with a number. And I managed to trace down Mr. Aris Racine, basically through the phone book. I was staying in this place in Biel, which is sort of a bed and breakfast, but it was also a community for young Christian people. I have probably read that somewhere when I made the reservation, but I was not really aware of what that would be like in real life. So it was basically a mental institution where 20 young Christian people were living, and they were really friendly and really helpful. I am an atheist, so instead of trying to convert me into this religion, they were just like completely open-minded. And oh, you're here to write a book? Wow, that's special. We never had someone coming over who is a writer. And so they helped me to get to connect to some people in the city hall of Lengnau. And one of them was working there as an, I don't know what the English word is, archivaris, someone who works in the archives of City Hall.
Yeah. Oh, some sort of like, I guess, I mean, I understand what you're referring to. Somebody who happens to have the history of a town, all of the renovations for buildings, etc.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and he came up with like two phone numbers. One number was from the mayor of Lengnau, who I also interviewed, and one was a number of Mr. Aris Racine. And it was just there in my hands, you know. So, yeah, I gave him a call, and that was kind of exciting because, of course, I had to do it in German. And so, yeah, well, I was really glad he picked up the phone, but I was like completely blown out of the field when we started trying to have this conversation. I basically was afraid that he would not take me seriously. He was not. He would not be willing to meet me. But well, we met, and the first meeting we had was also pretty awkward. He was not really. Well, let's put it this way. He was not really enthusiastic to talk to me about the book. I think he might have been approached in the past to talk about the subject, and it just didn't feel right for him. I think perhaps the timing was not right. You have also take into consideration that the way Enicar ended was pretty sad. And
liquidation, I believe, in the early
exactly.
80s, correct?
Yeah, in 1987, the company went out of business after struggling already for a few years. Things started to get really difficult for the company already in the early 80s. And they just try to manage and try to keep on producing watches and try to stay in business. But it was really, must have been really hard because of the quartz crisis, of course, but also Enicar being an independent brand, a family-owned business. So, and it actually ended in 1987, and it ended on a really sad note. I learned that the Racine family had to sell all their belongings. They had to sell the factory, of course, but also their private house, and they went they moved out of Langnau, and they went to another place, also because they felt really ashamed and embarrassed. So I came to him with all these questions, and he was, I think, a bit afraid that it would only be focused on everything that went wrong with Enicar. But that was completely not my goal. My goal was trying to find these stories and trying to find a way to create this book that does justice to the brand and make people proud again. So I think after like 60 minutes of talking, he something
lightened up a bit to
switched in
you.
his head.
He lightened up.
Yeah, and he lightened up a bit, and I think he felt that my intentions are really honest, and it all comes from this passion for telling the story of this brand. And I mean, I've made an independent book without a publisher. I'm a one-man army, doing everything myself. I'm even bringing a book to a post office is something that I do myself. I do everything myself. So this is not a commercial project. And I think that was what also, yeah, I think he kind of liked that approach. And the only thing he asked for his information and in his time in return was, can I please have 2 copies of the book when it's finished? I mean,
Awesome.
Yeah, that's so sweet. Yeah.
I think that what you did, you were able to accomplish within this book is, really elevating the history of this brand that, for me, I didn't know anything going into it, but, learning the details of, okay, this is one of the largest job providers in the city of Langnau, and then on top of that, 3 generations of family-owned watch manufacturer. They were innovative in a ton of ways. Also the fact that they had one of the largest, I guess, productions of a huge case maker in Irvin Piqueras. They were one of the biggest clients.
Absolutely.
What you were able to do was very much honor the legacy, and despite the fact that it had ended on more of a sad note, you were able to kind of reform the story to basically show all the achievements of this, and also making it a very personable, passion-driven project with the, with the interactions with watchmakers, with, showing things that were different perhaps than other books have been able to do. I think one of the few things that stood out to me was the infographics on the demographics of who worked there.
Yeah,
largely comprised of women in administration to watchmaking, and I've never seen that covered in a book.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I'm kind of surprised that this book of mine does stand out like that. I mean, for me, it's like, yeah, well, logical to have all these elements into such a document, because they're all part of the brand history. And it's not only about a model, I mean, there are countless models that Enicar made, and it was undoable to begin with to cover all these models, because the catalog is endless. I probably would have had to make a book of 1,000 pages, and then it would not have been enough to cover all the Enicar models. Of course, collectors mostly know all the Sherpa models, and that's more or less more compact. it's easier to bring those watches into a document, but it's not about a watch and a technical description. To me, it's about the heart and soul of a brand, and the way people acted in these factories. They lived their lives there. It was like, yeah, it was. I mean, I'm from Eindhoven. Eindhoven is a city that was basically built by Philips Electronics. Even, I guess, in America, Philips is a well-known name. Um, Philips was a company that really looked after their workers, their employees. They built how they provided housing for their workers. They provided education. They provided healthcare. They provided pensions. Those were all communities in which a brand or a factory played a really important role. I mean, without these employees, a brand would not be able to be successful to begin with. But there's a difference between employing people and being aware of the fact that you have a vital role in a community. And that's something that has always appealed to me. And the same thing happened in Langnau, where Enicar was located. Rado, of course, is also there. There were 3 watch factories into the small community, but basically everybody with 2 working hands worked for one of those 3 factories. And there was this whole social life going on inside the walls of the factory, but also outside the factory. I mean, I was told by one of the former employees that if, for instance, a music group was in need of new costumes or new instruments, they went to Enicar, they went to Mr. Racine, and they just asked, and they were provided with the things they needed to have this well, yeah, this community where people looked after each other. So that's something that I felt was really important to stick into this book. And you were asking me about the percentage of women working at Enicar. Well, I was told that that was because women have these more delicate hands than us fellas do.
Dexterity in their fingers.
Yeah, exactly. So women were working as watchmakers on the smaller calibers, the you know, for the ladies' watches, and they were even paid more than most of the men working there. And if you were a parent and you had children, sooner or later you would be approached by the chef of your department, and the question was asked, when does your son or daughter is coming to join us, because we need them. We are a growing brand. We can basically use all the help we can get, but also they can start their career here, and we want to look after each other. We want to look after our people in this community. So bring them in.
I have to commend you. Those types of the more personal information, behind the scenes information about the history of a brand, rather than just, you know, numbers of production versus, you know, technical details. That type of storytelling was something that I really appreciated within this book. And even in the manner that you had done, you know, things as small as like the style guidelines or the reenactments of a watch that might have stood out to you on your journey of research. You know, things like the poetry, right? You kind of had brought a very different approach to watch books that I've never seen done. Was that your intention to, you know, do something very different? And also, the second part of that question is, where did the influences from those types of details come from? Was it strictly from your interest in Enicar, or did this come from a different type of influence outside of watches?
Mm-hmm. Um, your first question, what was it again?
Oh, I went on a tangent there. I guess where was the influence behind using things like poetry, like the
Yeah,
reenactments, the photo
yeah.
shoots, and
Yeah, well, I think the fact that I've been working in advertising so long was more or less to my benefit for creating this book, because in advertising you also bring together a lot of different um, things like design, photography, a tone of voice, a mood, an emotion, a type of a paper that you want to use, the feel that the paper has, the power of an illustration. All these things are really important when you're in advertising, and it's only seemed logic to me that I would bring those elements to this book. And I think it's the only way for me to create a book. And I never done a watch book before, so I think that's also one of the things that helped me, because there was no blueprint for me. Of course, I looked at other books, and yeah, well, I saw a lot to like, but I also saw a lot that I didn't like. And I just decided I'm going to go my own way for this project. It's my project. It's a personal project. With this book, I want to show everybody what I'm capable of. And so for me, there were no compromises. You know, when you're in advertising, you always have compromises because you're working for a client. And creativity is a beautiful thing, but when it's commercialized and a paying client is involved, you usually get a product, an end result that is far from perfect from a creative point of view. And I now had the liberty for this project that there was no client. It was my project, so I mean, I could do whatever I want. Of course, within the context of Enicar and the brand and every the people I wanted to pay tribute to. But for the rest, it was a blank canvas. And for me, also one of the influences for this project, I think, is the work of two photographers. I've been working with them for a couple of years. They're called Verse Beeldwagen, and I have a huge admiration for their work, because they have this project. It's called Hotel Hellstadt, and it's been an ongoing project for the both of them. And they have created a book with photography from it's like a time capsule. I mean, it's like going back into the 50s and 60s in Eastern Europe. They've been visiting all these former Soviet countries for like 15 years, and they make beautiful photos of their journeys, but they also reenact certain situations. So when you're looking at their work, you're never sure if that is a photo that they have actually taken in, say, Belarus, or it's something that they created, but you can't tell the difference because it feels completely authentic. So I got the chance for this book to work with those guys again, and I knew they were absolutely the right people for this job, because these 5 photo shoots I did with them, they created the atmosphere of that particular moment in time, with a fantastic eye for detail. And we retold the stories of 5 specific watches with these photo homages. And I think you could say they're the catalog pictures that were never taken. And
beautiful.
because
It's beautiful.
thanks. Something that most people won't know is that in 3 of those pictorials. I am actually the model. But we did everything we could not to get my face into the picture, because I didn't want to have my face in the picture. Because it's not about me, you know, it's about the people who owned these watches, and the role these watches played in their daily lives. For instance, if you look at the diver, there's a beautiful story behind that watch. It's also in the book. It belonged to a professional diver from the UK. He wore the watch for like 20 years, I think. He made a really important discovery by finding a shipwreck while wearing the watch. That's something of a story that that works if you put it on paper, but it works even better when you try to visualize it. And for this particular story, and also for the other 4 stories, I chose to put them in a poem, because it did not feel right to have such dreamlike time capsule photos and then closing it off with like, here's a technical description of the watch. This is what happened. These are the facts. Yeah. I think it only works because I try to capture the emotion into a type of copy that gives you also the room as a reader for your own interpretation. And I hope I succeeded. I think these are actually the parts of the copy that my editor did not touch at all. So he did a lot of work for me. He did a lot of tightening up the copy, but these poems, they were virtually untouched. So yeah, I guess it pays off when you watch a lot of movies and you listen to a lot of American bands.
No, I mean the artistic reenactments of these watches was something that, you know, I think was definitely a high point of the book. And it's, you know, it's basically storytelling through pictures alone, and you have to kind of go and look for the contextual details to understand it, right? The world time, the case's reflection of the houndstooth jacket, that's something that you look at and you're like, wow, that's a really beautiful photograph. But then you look at something perhaps like the Jason, I believe, Jakowski, the U.S. Military member who stormed the beaches of Normandy. I mean, when you look at that, you're seeing a different type of, you know, artistic photography, I guess, interpretation of the watch. And I don't know. I think that this was something that I would be excited to see more books incorporate. And I know Greg and Jim were talking a moment ago and saying that they've got to convince you to do a book on Rado. So, you know, Rado, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but, you know, this is definitely something that I think you've done an excellent job at you know, contributing towards and setting the next bar for authors in real time.
Okay, well, that's a lot to swallow. Well, if I manage to inspire anyone with this work, I'm glad. I mean, like I said, I'm not a watch book writer. I created something that it was about time that this book got out there, because I've always wondered why there was no good book about Enicar. I mean, there were like hundreds of books about Rolex and Patek Philippe, and why was there no book about Enicar? Well, I found out lots of documentation got lost when the company went out of business. It was literally thrown into a shredder. So it was already poorly documented when I started my whole investigation and research. But then again, I mean, there could have been a book by now. I mean, it's been like so many years, and they were like the number 15 back in the days of the Swiss watch industry. That it was a huge brand. a huge brand. They were sold in 92 countries. They were one of the first brands in the 50s to sell their products to the Chinese Republic, which is like, there are only a handful of brands that got entrance into the Chinese market. So they were really important, and I think they have been. I think they might have been underestimated. Um, uh, I think they did not get the credits for all the technical innovations they pulled off, and they just seemed like forgotten. I mean, it's because of the Sherpa graph that was connected to Jim Clark a couple of years back by some collectors in Italy. Only then the brand seemed to finally get into the picture again. You know, if it wouldn't have happened, probably I wouldn't have made a book either. I mean, the brand would have just been forgotten. So thanks for these Italian guys and their fascination for Formula One racing and chronographs. But yeah, it's been puzzling. I mean, and there are many other brands out there that do not have a proper book. And don't forget, many of the people who can give us the first-hand information, they are going to die. I mean, the people I've talked to are already in the late 70s, in the mid 80s. These people are not going to live forever. And if we don't get the stories from these people firsthand, it's going to be over for a lot of brands that do not have a proper book. Or we have all the books that we already have, like photo of a watch, technical description, photo of a watch, technical description, and you know,
there's more to be told is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I guess one of the questions that I had prepped down was, in terms of like the research process of this, how was the role of the collector community involved in organizing, I guess, you know, whether it's booklets, whether it's, you know, examples of watches that you can feature within the book? How did that whole process come together?
Oh man, well, it was the role of some collectors was like essential. I would not have been able to make this book without some great help I got from collectors from Germany, collectors from the US. The fun thing about Enicar is the Enicar community is actually pretty small. There are a lot of new people getting involved, but the core of this community is really small. And I'm part of this WhatsApp group. It's called Enicar International. They're also in the book, and it was, I think it was an idea of Greg and Lars and Nico to join forces to create this WhatsApp group, so they could help me get all the information I needed and the watch pieces I needed to make the book. So yeah, we got together like I think in the middle of 2018, and the group started with, I think, 7 or 8 collectors. And the fun thing is we're from all continents. So we have a guy from Australia, we have some guys from Germany, we have a guy from the UK, we have a guy from Sweden, we have some American guys. So we're actually all around the world. And so yeah, well, it's convenient because apart from the time zones, which is sometimes not convenient, sometimes you wake up in the morning and you see you've missed like 60 WhatsApp messages because they've been talking like crazy in the United States and we've all been asleep in Europe. But yeah, the people involved in the group, they helped me with the knowledge, they helped me with the watches. I mean, 2 of the watches that are photographed in the book for the reenactments were from a German collector, and without these watches, I would not have been able to make these stories. So he just sent them to me. I mean, here's a guy that I never met. He's passionate about Enicar. He knows that I'm doing this book, and he's like, okay, give me your address. I'll send you these watches. I don't need them back in short time. Just do your thing, and I trust you. And I'm like, whoa, that's mind blowing. I mean, that's helping me, not only helping me. That's like infinite trust, and
Yes.
that's a beautiful thing because, well, that's something that we're lacking these days, I think. But this happens in this community, and also with the questions I encountered while doing the book, I could ask my questions to these collectors. They would help me if they could. I want to mention Nico Henke because not only does he have like the best Enicar chronograph collection in the world, but he also has a huge amount of knowledge. He's doing this project on his own website, Enicar 101, and there he tries to find all the data that he can get his hands on to create this this archive for Sherpa chronographs. I've put some of the data into the new edition of the book. He's been extremely helpful. He's been sending me beautiful pictures that I could use in the book. Also, Jean Vittorio Molteni, who passed away pretty recently, was a huge collector from Italy with a finger-licking good collection. He also helped me with some of the best pictures available and some of his knowledge. And yeah, I think this is actually, well, I don't want to sound cheesy, but it's a group effort.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really thankful for all the people who helped me. And yeah, like I said, it's yeah, without the community, I couldn't have made this book.
No, it certainly is a beautiful, collective group effort, and you were able to kind of, show these individuals' collections in the book, right? But also you were able to, garner the trust with your passion for everybody to kind of say, all right, let's just centralize all of the information, put it all in Martin's hands, and trust him. And that's, that's something that hopefully will be, that next step for the next person who wants to write a book and make it done, in the right manner. They want to get the story that everybody wants rather than just an individual project per se. Mm-hmm. I think it was a beautiful thing. And, I'm not sure what your time parameters are. We've got 6 minutes left. Do you want to continue chatting, or do you want to wrap it up?
I have time enough. I mean, I'm here in my office. I promised Martin and his friend that I would throw some darts tonight, but we're not in a hurry. We have the time, so just keep shooting these questions. I like it.
And if anybody wants to submit a question in the comment section, what I'll try and do is sure. Jump around and multitask for everybody.
So, well, I'm glad that you take this task because I am too focused on finding the right words in English to also keep an eye on on all the comments. So you just take care of that, and I'll be fine.
It's my third try. I'm hopefully getting better at this interviewing discussion Instagram live concept. So, one of the aspects that you had talked about was the in-house movements. These were the Aristaurescine acronyms, the AR calibers. Now, these were all produced in Langnau, and then the watches that were, I believe, Bausches, assembled maybe in Ostensinger, I believe, the city.
Oestingen.
Thank you. These watches that have the Bausch movements, do you think that collectors should focus more so on, the AR calibers, or is there different types of,
No, because no, there's actually there is no difference, because what happened in the plant in Unsingen, all these Bauches that were created there, they went straight to Langnau, and there they were assembled into the end product. So it's not like there are different kinds of movements created on one place and others on in another place. Actually, that's something that probably not everybody knows, but the type of the movement quality in say a top line Sherpa watch like an Ultra Dive is the same as in a lesser product that is marketed on a different price. The quality was also always top level at Enicar. That was something that I've been looking through all the documents I was handed by Mr. Racine in Switzerland, all these corporate magazines, and they cover a period of 22 years. And in every single issue, there is an introduction written by the patron, the Mr. Racine, and it's always about quality, 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 quality. So if you buy a lower priced Enicar watch with an AR movement, you have the same reliability, the same quality as when you buy a model from the top line. So that's actually business-wise interesting. I mean, why put the same top quality movement in your complete range of watches with all these different segments? You know, that's I guess that's the Swiss way. I think that's the only explanation I can come up with.
Jim had asked a question. I don't know the context to it, but he said, is there any contact with the actual owner over in China yet? I'm assuming that's for the current owner of Enicar.
Yeah, I have tried to get in contact with the Chinese Enicar company way back in 2014. Yeah, well, I think everybody who is watching now knows the story. When Enicar went out of business in '87, all the machines were sold to a Russian company, and this Hong Kong-based firm bought the rights to the logo and the brand name, and they have been creating watches that they sell as Enicar watches ever since. But if you look at the website, for instance, enicar.com, you will not recognize the signature that we love about Enicar at all. They create, they create watches, and that's what all I want to say about that, because I don't want to get into legal problems or anything. Don't want to disrespect these Chinese people, but I felt as an opportunity back then for me to get in contact with Enicar and to share my ideas for, well, maybe we can do a book in the future, because I assumed that this company was holding on to like something of an archive, but they're not. They only have like the rights to use the Enicar name, and that's everything they have. They don't have any numbers. They don't have any designs from the golden Enicar decade. They have nothing. They only have this business model of creating watches with a brand name that is really familiar in that part of the world. Because, like I said, already in the 50s, Enicar was pretty huge in Asia and China. So they're doing well, I suppose. They don't need all this attention from vintage Enicar, because that's definitely not their core product. So I sent them 2 emails, I think, 2 or 3 emails. The first one, I got a response, which was pretty nice, friendly. And then in mail number 3, they started to get a bit ugly. They were making pretty clear that they did not want to have a book made. Yeah, they did not threaten me with lawyers or anything, but it felt not really comfortable. So I just parked it over. I parked it. I did not make any newer efforts to.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Martin. We've got about 10 seconds left. What I'm going to do is save the video and then jump into the next chat if you're still okay. but
Yep.
Enicar International, they're going to protect you from any sort of, threat coming your way. We've got you over in Florida as well.
I'm
I'll see you in
covered.
1 second.